741, welcome back to Acadiana's Morning News. I'm Rob Kirkpatrick with Bernadette Lee, and joining us on the phone, Dr. Meena Bose, the chair of the Presidential Studies Department at Hofstra University. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So obviously we've been watching this chess game that we are calling a presidential primary, and what we've seen is a lot of fighting amongst the candidates of their own parties. I mean, obviously there was the email scandal that was between really leading by the GOP candidates with Hillary, but I mean, very few between those yet. We're still just fighting for this nomination. What do you make of all the back and forth? This week it seems like it sort of bubbled up between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton more than anything. What do you make of this kind of infighting?
Well, I think that if we start with the Democrats, and there's so much to discuss here, but I think if we start with the Democrats, what we're seeing, and there were some stories about this earlier this week, that now the Sanders campaign is kind of questioning whether Hillary Clinton is in fact beatable. There's been some discussion about, some campaign staff have thought that Sanders should have campaigned harder in 2015, and that there was a path to the nomination that in the spring of 2015 didn't seem viable. I think at this point, Hillary Clinton is ahead in pledged delegates and overwhelmingly has the support of the superdelegates in the Democratic Party. So as of April, she has the popular vote and the elite vote, if you will. That said, so it's a very narrow window for Bernie Sanders, but there is a window there, and I think there's also a question here of how does he influence the party if he doesn't win the nomination. So I think that what you're seeing in the Sanders campaign is we're going to keep running, we're going to run hard, and we're going to see where this goes, even if it doesn't lead to the nomination.
And a lot of analysts had suggested that Bernie Sanders would do pretty well in the Northeast. I mean, that's his pretty much a stronghold, with the exception of New York, where Hillary Clinton was a senator. Looking ahead to the New York primary, what do you see as an outcome on both sides, the GOP side and the Democrat side?
Well, I mean, if we go by the polls at this point, 11 days before the election, Hillary is about 10 points ahead. I think it's 10.5 points ahead of Sanders. Now, that can change. I was just speaking to someone about the Michigan case, where Sanders was expected to lose and defeated her. Yeah. But at this point, she has a comfortable lead. So it seems as though she is on track, barring some unforeseen news, or we'll see what happens at the debate on April 14th. I mean, things can change, as we've certainly seen in this race. But she seems to be on track to win New York at this point in time. If Sanders wins, that does change the game. I think if he comes within 5 points, that raises some questions. If she wins by more than 5 percentage points, I think the Democrats are on track for a Clinton nomination. On the Republican side at this point, Donald Trump is well ahead in the polls, and actually Governor Kasich is second. Cruz is running third in New York.
I thought that was odd. I really did.
His comment didn't help him.
I know.
But this was never friendly territory for Senator Cruz, and so I think in some ways that's kind of part of what his candidacy has been about, is kind of running against the Northeastern elite. This isn't where his stronghold is, so that's not surprising. Donald Trump had a very enormous turnout at a rally on Long Island earlier this week. He's actually going to host another one, I just saw, next week. He's expected to win and to do well. So, but whether that guarantees him the nomination, that's a question of delegate count. And at this point, it looks like the odds are that the Republicans will have a contested convention, with Trump and Cruz being the two frontrunners.
Okay, well, that's what I wanted to ask you, because as much as we've talked about this and tried to get it out there, I get constant questions on email and through social media to explain the contested convention. And is it different than a brokered convention? And if so, what is that different? So can you just give us like a 30,000-foot view of what this means and the process, please?
Sure. I actually was at a seminar in January where someone from the Republican committee spoke, and we brought up the phrase brokered convention. He said, no, it won't be brokered. It'll be contested, because brokered refers to 19th century and even 20th century up through the 60s, where the state and local party leaders would negotiate with the presidential campaigns and really had the power to deliver the delegates. The distinction here is it's not the party leaders, it's voters. And voters at this point have made it very difficult for any candidate, no candidate, due to the divided electorate, if you will, due to the many candidates who've received votes, and at this point, two frontrunners and a very distant third with Kasich, and then Rubio and Jeb Bush still having delegates, et cetera. There is a chance that no candidate will enter Cleveland for the Republican convention with an outright majority of the delegates, which is what you need to get the nomination. At that point, it becomes a contested convention because you'll have probably the two frontrunners vying for the nomination, potentially the third candidate, Governor Kasich, saying that he's the better alternative to these two. And, of course, there has been discussion among party elites about possibly floating someone who hasn't been in the contest at all. That would be,
just bring him in. Okay.
I think, the most risky strategy. But that's the difference between contested and brokered. Basically, brokered is party leaders have the power, or contested is it comes down to a battle at the convention, where party leaders may try to exercise power, but it's really, I think, ultimately a battle over votes.
All right.
And the delegates are pledged in the first round, but then in the second round, they are free to vote for whomever they want, and that's what makes this a complicated process.
Okay. I think we're all. You on track, Bernie?
It's great.
I think I get it now. Okay, good. Dr. Meena Bose, Chair of Presidential Studies at Hofstra University. We appreciate your time this morning.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Coming up, we're going to talk about some local races that'll happen, including some tax rate changes and other things here locally this weekend. That's coming up about 3 minutes away.